In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we are going to be talking about the absolute dumpster fire that is the Chicago Bears. We'll be diving into a few more things, but first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Season is going on right now, so make sure you go on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Oh, so can I just start this off by saying, by the time you guys listen to this podcast, I truly hope that the Bears have done the right thing, not the knee-jerk thing, the absolute correct thing, and have relieved Matt Eberflus of his duties as head coach of the Chicago Bears. Fingers crossed that is what is happening when you are listening to this podcast. But I have reservations whether or not they'll actually do it.
They're done. Whatever this is, it's done. Frankly, it's been done. There have been many signs to tell you that it's done. But this is as done as you can see it. Because, no, it wasn't one of those historic lost days where you were leading by multiple scores with a few minutes left and finding a way to lose. It wasn't losing on a Hail Mary play where somebody was taunting the opposing fans. This was an effort that wasn't there. And sure, the players go out and try to play. But the body language in this game was so telling. It was so telling. And right now, the world is watching this organization ruin Caleb Williams in front of our very eyes. They are ruining him. And he can't be absolved of blame, but when you are a rookie quarterback in the NFL, it is imperative that you coach him through the growing pains. You don't coach him to be scared to turn the ball over. You help him by scheming your offense correctly and giving him protection and not allowing him to take 9 sacks. And this all happened at home. The one thing that Matt Eberflus could hang his hat on, oh, the Bears keep winning at home. The Bears keep winning at home. You just let a 2-7 team just completely shut you down at home. You were moving backwards on how many plays. And it got worse and worse and worse as the game moved on. Worse and worse. And you have Shane Waldron trying to crack something on the sideline. Caleb Williams not having it. Like I said, the body language, it's very evident. And we are at the point where everybody in this country who watches football, pays attention to football, these millions of people that don't have any emotional investment into the Bears are pointing at this and saying, what the hell is going on? How on earth can they keep doing this? Because no, a coaching change right now isn't going to necessarily save your season, but it might save your franchise in the long run. Because the further you go with what you have right now, the deeper hole you're going to create. You're going to be in China before you know it as you keep digging.
Absolutely.
This is public malpractice. This is malpractice with an audience.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there. firing your head coach does not save your season. It may make you're not going to be any better necessarily. You may even be worse, who knows? Because you have an inexperienced staff. You don't have that guy. There's other teams that have like, you look at other teams and they have former head coaches or very seasoned coordinators that you could turn to make this work in an interim basis. The Bears don't. They have a really inexperienced staff, and this just might even be worse. But by doing this move, you are preventing going so far backwards when you have a new coaching staff in next year that they don't have to dig so far out. It puts everybody on notice. You can't quit because we are making serious changes here. And you've, there's a long way to go in this season. Was week 10 and we got 8 more weeks. So there's still a significant amount of season left. You're not going to do anything good in it, but you can prevent more bad from happening. If you keep traipsing out Matt Eberflus, knowing that players don't buy into this anymore, and you're just setting yourself up for failure. And one of the points you brought up about how the sideline language is, we actually had somebody post on Facebook today saying, have you noticed this on the sideline? The offensive players just sit on the bench staring into space while they're playing like absolute garbage. Instead of being engaged in the game, looking at formations on the tablets, trying to figure out what's going on. I wanted to see if you guys see the same thing I did. Absolutely. I wrote it down in my notes that I take during the game is just you have nobody working and trying to collaborate and I think they've given up, especially on offense. Definitely on defense too. They're I haven't say they quit, but they're making business decisions. They're not being as aggressive. On offense, they are just so out of rhythm. Is Players don't know where they're supposed to be on formations. They don't know who they're supposed to block. They don't know what routes they're supposed to run. And nobody is trying to make it better. You have Caleb Williams, who's trying to be very, I guess, PC in what he's saying, but it speaks volumes because he said he's got to ask for details on plays during the week. Why should you have to ask? Everything should be so meticulously drawn out for their rookie quarterback who they're trying to groom. I, I, I mean, Matt Eberflus needs to be gone by before lunch tomorrow. Absolutely has to. Shane Waldron is, whether or not you relieve him of duties, he cannot be calling plays. I don't know who is. I'm going through the coaching staff and I'm looking, and your offensive passing game coordinator, Thomas Brown, is he going to be calling the plays? Zach Cable, your offensive quality control coach, your offensive assistant quarterbacks and wide receivers coach, Ryan Griffin. Like who is Kerry Joseph, the quarterback coach? Who's calling the plays? Like, they don't have anybody.
No,
It
no, they don't.
it is so abysmally bad. Uh, when I said we both did is Jim Caldwell wouldn't have been a bad choice
I don't think so either.
because number one, he would not have been ill prepared. Even if it wasn't working out, he would not have been ill prepared like you have this.
Nope.
Number two is he would have brought in people with experience underneath him. And if something went awry and you were like, you know what, we got to part ways with him because it's not working, he would have people with experience underneath him that could step in and be, at least a competent play caller in his place. You don't have that now. is they're probably scrambling right now going, that's probably, I'm guessing that's the reason that they have not taken away play calling duties from Shane Waldron is who is going to call the plays?
Right,
Who?
exactly.
It,
Exactly.
it is so painfully just botched. And I'm going to get to my point here that I said in a tweet that I'm going to make the case of why Ryan Poles needs to be fired as well. Let's start with number one is he made the wrong head coaching hire. And I gave him some leeway because what it appeared is Bears ownership when they hired him said you can hire who you want from this list. And that's lame. And he should have pushed back on it. If I know he was trying to get his first job, and I know that's a big deal, and the pay difference and the prestige difference, but you need to push back on that, and you can't accept that. If you accept that from an ownership that going into this doesn't know anything about football, you go into that and say, no, I may hire somebody from this list. I am going to do my own interviews and I'm going to make my own decision, not hire from your predetermined list. He didn't do that. And he hired somebody that nobody wanted in the first place.
I didn't even know who the hell Matt Eberflus was when they hired him.
Just picture from the Avengers. It's like, you took everything. I don't even know who you are. Uh, but so that was already right off the bat, strike one. You look through the history of his trades, his non-draft day trades, and you're like the Khalil Mack trade, you got a second and a six. All right. I'll go with that one was okay.
That was a salary dump. Let's be real.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you were trying to do was get that salary off the books.
Yeah. And so I'll say that one was okay. You traded a seventh round pick for N'Keal Harry, which seventh round pick doesn't matter. But if you would have waited like 2 more weeks, he would have been cut. You wouldn't have had to give up that seventh round pick, and you wouldn't have had to pay that salary. You would have been paying him the rook or the minimum. Instead, you paid him a couple $1 million. So that was bad. Chase Claypool. You gave up a second round pick for Chase Claypool.
Probably your worst move.
That is a terrible move. You gave up a sixth round pick for Dan Feeney. Sixth round pick, not that much. Dan Feeney was bad.
I honestly forgot about that.
You traded Chase Claypool and a seventh for a sixth round pick. Again, you turned a second round pick into a circus and a sixth, seventh pick swap.
It was a negative ROI on that one.
Yes, that was a bad one. The Montez Sweat trade, very good trade.
Great trade.
The Caleb Williams trade, very good trade. Ryan Bates, you gave up a fifth round pick and had to pay him a lot of money. That has not been a good pick or trade so far. And Keenan Allen gave up a fourth, but you had to pay a lot of money for Keenan Allen. I think you way overpaid for that one. For what you're gaining, what's he showing on the field?
Yes. Do I get the idea behind it? Yes. Unfortunately, it hasn't turned out as well as we thought.
But so trades have been a really big. It's been home runs or botches. There's not a lot of middle ground there. But for me, what really, really hits home is, all right, you made the wrong head coach hire. And after 1 year, or is it 2 years? 2 years, you already lost. After 1 year, you lost the defensive coordinator. And after another year, you had to fire your offensive coordinator. So already you made the decision. You said you were going to try to make drafting your quarterback. And whenever a general manager takes a number one overall pick quarterback, that if the clock hasn't already started ticking on his time, then that's the absolute start. And you said, I want to make this the softest landing possible. You brought him in. You brought in a coaching staff that you said were teachers, and just they worked well with him. And you decided to keep your defensive head coach. You decided to keep him and not move on. If you would have moved on, even the people that liked Matt Eberflus would not have blinked an eye, batted an eye at it. They would have understood you're attaching a head coach with a number one overall pick rookie.
People would have looked at the past and said, yeah, that makes sense. You don't want to make the same mistake you made the last two times when Ryan Pace brought in John Fox, and then drafted Mitch Trubisky, and then got rid of John Fox, and then you bring in Justin Fields and you keep Matt Nagy, then you got rid of Matt Nagy. I mean, those are the things where you say, hey, there is a history of bad things happening when we keep the same regime with a new quarterback. So yeah, let's go ahead and make the change. It would have made perfect sense.
Even the people that were like, I like Matt Eberflus, or I think he deserves more time, even those people would have been like, I get it, makes sense. And you didn't do it. You didn't pull the trigger. You decided to let him go and get two new coordinators. And the coordinator, the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator doesn't call plays. And the offensive coordinator has been so abysmally bad. And there's no consistency. Watching his play calling, it's predictable, it's boring, it's bad, and nobody can find any sort of pattern. Like you watch today, where when the Patriots were close to the goal line, they went into one formation and ran one type of play, went into the same formation, the reverse side, like flipped the formation, and then used that to fool the Bears into having the guy that was blocking before pretend like he was blocking, go out for a pass pattern and catch a touchdown. It's you set them up. You set them up by showing them one thing, and then the next play showing them the same thing but doing something different out of it. You're not seeing that from the Bears.
Meanwhile, you're shifting east, and the defense reads it like a book, so there's nobody open. And you're doing draw plays when you're down in desperation of moving the ball at the end of the game, when it was down to your last breath, essentially. And you're losing yards. Oh, and by the way, you don't see as many false starts from these other teams.
No. So you are Ryan Poles, and you brought in this new offensive staff, and you kept the old offensive line coach, even though your offensive line was terrible. And you had Olin Krut screaming to anybody that would listen to him that if he was an offensive coordinator, he would not accept the job if they forced an offensive line coach onto him. And the Bears did that with a bad offensive line coach. And here we are. And now and also when you look at it, where your soft landing for your rookie quarterback is you gave him a crappy offensive line that everybody was concerned about except for Ryan Poles.
And when it was bad when it was healthy. You can't, and you can't even use the it's banged up as an excuse because it was bad when everyone was healthy.
Yeah, you can't use that excuse when you, Ryan Poles, touted the depth of your offensive line. You specifically called out the depth of the offensive line as a strength, and the depth stinks. Sure, you may have had a lot of guys, but a lot of guys that can't play football. And so you gave your rookie quarterback a bad offensive coordinator, a defensive head coach that's bad at coaching football, and no offensive line. And now you're going, well, why is he regressing? Because he's getting the stuffing knocked out of him. uh, so why on earth would is Ryan Poles going to be uh you know why are you going to let him hire a new coach? Is sure you could be like, well, lots of GMs get to hire a second head coach, but after they've botched it so hard with the coach, you know, protecting your head coach and not firing him and bringing in a whole new staff, you helped him augment it with a new offensive coordinator and new defensive coordinator, and you botched that too. Like, why on earth should you trust Ryan Poles to continue this? I'm fine with leaving Ryan Poles in place to the end of the season and firing him at that point. But you, I'm going to say, you've got an in-house candidate that can take over that position.
You're talking about Ian Cunningham.
Ian Cunningham is a guy that has been a finalist on multiple years from multiple teams for general manager. You've got him in-house. You could relieve Ryan Poles of his duties and keep Ian Cunningham, not lose him, and be fine and let him run the show. Because honestly, I think I think he has been a crutch for Ryan Poles. And since he first came over, I've been telling people I worry about losing him and watching Ryan Poles have to do this on his own. So I don't know why you would keep Ryan Poles. Is you the whole thing has been botched, just absolutely botched, because then you're going to end up having a situation where a new GM and a new head coach are going to be inheriting a quarterback, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Every time we think the worst days are over, how many times over the past decade have we said this is rock bottom? It's always been rock bottom.
And
Minus
the thing is, we're not even close to rock bottom. It's just we have such poor ownership that they can't get out of their own dumb ways. And you've got, I mean, you've got the foundation of a team that should be acceptable and not having to rebuild. You should be able to, a competent head coach with a competent GM should be able to take this team and make them competitive next year.
how many more times under how many more Bears regimes do we have to see a team try to do brain surgery just to get 3 yards for a first down? How many times do we have to do it?
Yeah. Everything the Bears do on offense looks so painfully hard.
And then you go and you watch the Bengals and the Ravens the other night. That high scoring game.
I was watching that from the beach in Mexico,
Oh, very nice, very nice.
eating tacos.
Tacos. So you saw as you were eating your tacos and enjoying the beach how just they can just score points and move downfield mercilessly. Those two offenses.
Yep.
I mean, the Bengals are awake again, even with the loss, and they might have too many losses at this point, but shit, like you're seeing what they can do again. And you see what Lamar Jackson can do, even as a guy who isn't known for throwing many yards and uses his legs a lot, but you see what he can do. You see how they can command offenses. You see the efficiency of said offenses. You see guys get open. You see guys breaking tackles. You see the lines block. You see everything functioning like a symphony. And you see the Detroit Lions scoring 45 plus points like they're playing backyard football. You can't even get 10 yards without it making it look complicated. And it took you 2.5 games just to target your tight end again. Your number one tight end. And DJ Moore and Caleb Williams are still light years off. I don't get that. I really, really don't. And then you look at number of plays. Caleb is scrambling. He's actually has a window to throw. In window, I mean like terms of time because he's moving away from the pressure. But then you look at the overhead and the two problems are either one, Caleb's not taking his check down, which he flat out needs to be better at, or two, nobody can get open. You have all these weapons and nobody can get open.
Yeah, that's the troubling one to me is you can't tell me Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, and Keenan Allen and Cole Kmet aren't able to get open against one of the worst defenses. Wait, I wrote this down. The 26th ranked defense in yards per play. They can't, all four of those guys can't get open. That scheme, that scheme. And you could be like, oh, well, Caleb Williams holding the ball too long. There's nobody open. You have both of your starting offensive tackles out today. Everybody on earth is like, well, this is going to be a no-brainer. Is they're going to do so many three-step drops throw. Three-step drops. Everything is going to be short timing, slant routes, like quick releases because there's not going to be a pocket. And that's not what happened. That is not what happened. Everybody on earth, except for the Bears coaching staff, saw this and thought of this. And the Bears coaching staff like, well, we got to figure out the whys. I know the whys because you're all dumb and bad at your jobs. And
I got to figure out the whys. It just brought back Matt Nagy.
And I am 100% honest. I wrote a lot of these angry comments in purple crayon on a piece of paper.
Ding Dong George and his purple crayon.
I'm so fed up. And for the first time today, you heard Eberflus actually take some responsibility. And
he's trying to save his ass.
Oh, that's absolutely the point. Is all of these guys, when they're bad at it, none of them, Matt Nagy, Tressman, Eberflus, none of them are like, you know what, I'm owning this. It is always, there's an excuse and it is weak. It is weak sauce. And the minute you don't take ownership of things, then that's the day I go, you know what, you're not going to work out. And Eberflus has been years and years. Is the first year we gave him a pass because it was an absolute rebuild. But what is that man's record as a head coach? It is so abysmally bad. I don't know how he keeps his job, and you can, as Ryan Poles or Kevin Warren, can walk into this building tomorrow and look at those players in the eyes, be like, nah, we're going to keep Eberflus as your head coach, and we're going to keep Shane Waldron as your offensive coordinator. I honestly think what's going to happen is they're going to say, we met and we're going to make a change at offensive play calling duties. I think that's what's only thing that's going to happen. And which is telling me that there is absolutely no accountability, and Shane Waldron is going to be used as a scapegoat.
Yeah. I mean, you could be listening to this podcast. We could be totally wrong in a good way. But, I mean, right now, recording tonight, that's kind of what it feels like. No question about it. And I think there is something to be said about the crowd at Soldier Field today. Because, once again, it was just another time warp. Because for the first time in this regime, despite the growing, how do I say it? The growing tension, I guess, the growing frustrations among the fans towards Matt Eberflus and the coaching, the fact that they've been able to win a lot of these games at home has kind of prevented this from happening. But today, for the first time in this regime, we finally heard it. We heard the Fire Flus chants at Soldier Field. Just like we heard the Fire Nagy chants at Soldier Field. Just like we saw the Firefox posters where they took the Firefox internet browser logo and put it on a board and saying, hey, here, look, Firefox. Fire Mark Tressman with the bags on their heads. it was Groundhog Day. It was Groundhog Day when they were showing those Bears fans booing and thumbing down on TV. We've seen that so many times in all these other regimes. I will never forget the game against the Saints in 2014 when Tressman was done. Cutler had given up and he was throwing picks, and the media was ripping him to shreds. And they were showing the Bears fans in the front row with bags over their heads. It's Groundhog Day. It's happening all again. And we said it was happening again in January when you did the same fucking thing and said, yeah, it's not fine, but it's fine. Oh, we're going to move forward with Matt Eberflus. Oh, Jim Harbaugh, well, he's the Michigan head coach. Bite me. Bite me, you fucking coward.
And I wasn't one for, oh, Jim Harbaugh is the savior. But you know what?
It's the principle of the matter.
It's the one thing that I can say is Jim Harbaugh would not have accepted this bullshit.
Look what he's doing with LA, with the Chargers. They're 6-3 right now. They're playing pretty well. They got an efficient run game. They're well coached. They might not be the most talented team in the NFL, but they are winning with a winning coach. A coach that is too powerful and too scary for the buttoned-up good boy McCaskies.
Yeah. But, I'm putting this. Oh, so I want to say this thing is I just wrote this down somewhere around. I didn't write exactly where, but it was somewhere around halftime that the Bears starting field position on these three drives were their own 40, their own 48, and the New England 47 versus the 26th ranked defense in yards per play. In those three drives where they essentially started at midfield, how many total points did they score in those three drives?
None.
Zero. 0 points. We are in week 10 of the NFL season. Do you know how many total points the Bears have in every single first quarter combined on this season?
Isn't
in week
it like
10?
3 or something?
You overestimated. It is 0.
Wow.
They have not scored. We are in week 10 of the NFL season. We are in the second half of the NFL season. They have not scored a single point in the first quarter of any game, and they have not been the first team to score in any game this season.
That's incredible. It's incredible. You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
You really can't.
They don't do anything to cause broken plays downfield. They can't get a wide receiver screen to work. They can't get a running back screen or a tight end screen to work. It's just so painfully poorly coached and poorly put together. I just am flabbergasted. And they made the decision to not bring Cliff Kingsbury in, even though he had ties to Caleb Williams.
Uh-huh.
And we see the offense that he's putting together in Washington. And I'm not absolving Caleb Williams of anything, is he needs to be significantly better.
Yes, he does. The deep ball it's way off. Way off.
The deep ball is way off. Is he's still holding on to the ball too long. And there's time where, and I will be fair, there's a lot of times where analysts and radio heads and fans are saying that he's holding on to it too long. And there's really, like, he's running for his life. I don't know what else he's supposed to do, but there's a lot of times where he's taking sacks where he should just be throwing it away. Just throw it away. I know you're trying to make something happen, but he's got to be more aggressive. He's so scared. I mean, he has not turned the ball over in a while. Like, he's being very safe with the ball, but I think the season.
But that might be part of the problem too. I feel like that because he's not letting it rip because he's afraid to throw an interception. You're a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, you can throw interceptions, especially now. This season is toast. Is even at your record, if this was a terrible division, you could be like, okay, well, we can hang in there. This division is so good. There's nothing you can do at this point. So you might as well just let it rip and make things happen and launch yourself into a running start for next year with a real coaching staff. And I threw a coaching staff out there. Is Ben Johnson as your head coach and Robert Saleh as your defensive coordinator? Number
Sounds
one,
expensive.
who cares? Who cares?
The McCaskies do.
Virginia McCaskey is 102, almost 102 years old. We're like less than 2 months away from her being 102 years old. What she need the money for is spend it. And number one, it makes the best team in your division worse because both those coaches are Robert Saleh's Green Bay, isn't he? Sorry. It makes Green Bay worse. It makes the Lions worse. Is do it. Robert Saleh was a hell of a defensive coordinator, and he has head coaching experience. It was a terrible head coaching experience. Well, it was terrible once.
Well, you had
Once
freaking asshat
Aaron
show up
Rodgers
and
poisoned everything.
yeah.
But he had that team playing well with no quarterback at all. So he could coach that defense. And then Ben Johnson comes in there and is your offensive coordinator / play caller. And you just watch Caleb Williams operate this offense.
That makes too much sense.
Yeah, if you run this out and you give us the line of consistency, I am going to go to Hallis Hall and just fight everybody. I'm gonna be Mr. Marsh from South Park. Be drunk like, oh, this is America. Fighting everybody at the Little League game. I I am going to be so livid if they are like, well, we're going to try to keep consistency and have Caleb come into the same system for 2 straight years. I will lose my mind.
You know what I picture? I picture you as just the Tasmanian devil, and there's Hallis Hall with the gates closed, and all of a sudden just spinning. You go through the gates and you just start spinning in Hallis Hall. Just trying to get everybody.
I'm just flipping everybody's tables over. It's like, I don't even work at football operations. I'm the accountant. I don't care. Knock over your abacus.
You go to George's office. No, not my purple crayons. Not my purple crayons.
You just hear snap, snap. Sean starts snapping all of them and rubbing the sharp edges down to a flat edge.
And then you take the crayon sharpener on the back of the box and like you stick something in it so no one could sharpen a crayon in it again.
I take his little artwork that he's got hanging with a magnet on the fridge and just wipe my butt. Wad it up. Oh my God. I'm just mentally preparing for the most stupid thing they could do to be done. I have no faith they're going to do the right thing.
No. How can until they actually do it, it's hard to. It's really hard to have any faith that they'll do the right thing. They've never given themselves a track record that they're going to do the right thing. It's demoralizing as a fan. Today was just demoralizing again because you're seeing just a completely dysfunctional, like you don't even know how to describe it. It's like, what the hell am I watching? And the announcers are kept going like, what are we doing? How many times do we have to watch a Bears game where the announcers are scratching their heads? If you want to go out, if you're Georgie Porgy and you're Kevin Warren, and if you're Ryan Poles and you care so much about your culture and your reputation and how people see you, sitting here watching the results and hearing what everybody is saying about you, is that not a wake-up call?
I just want to say is you brought Ryan Poles in, and what did he say that the Bears were going to do?
we're going to take the North and we're never going to give it back.
Right. And you brought Kevin Warren in to get you a new stadium. Are
You're
we
further away from both of those than when you started.
absolutely? You are further away from both of those things.
I mean, I was talking with my family today. We were having dinner, and we were saying, like, we thought by now we would have had the shovels in the ground. There'd be a concrete foundation starting to be poured. The steel would be rolling in, the supportive steel beams. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know. We don't know. We don't hear anything because
Nope.
if there was actual progress being made, we would have heard something. But there's nothing. We've heard nothing. It's incredible how much further we are away. Oh, Ted Phillips bought the land? Okay, he'll pass it to his successor to figure this out. That's best case scenario. That's a win-win. Phillips secures the land. He's not involved with the process. Perfect. By the way, a friendly reminder that Ted Phillips, the accountant, the bean counter, the money man, the auditor, was running your team for 20 plus years. And outside a perfect storm season, getting to a Super Bowl, what have you seen? Nothing. Nothing. And you continue to see nothing. The same frustrations persist because it's Groundhog Day. And what I want to see beyond just the local media, and I don't think it's going to happen, but I am begging for the national media to hold the McCaskey family more responsible because they are the one constant in all of this. Every regime, everything they've done, Nagy, Eberflus, Fox, Tressman, whatever. The one consistent is them. And
Can I ask you a question,
yes,
Alex?
of course.
All right. Let's just hypothetically say you, Alex Pat, there's something on in this world that you have loved since the second you were old enough to understand loving an like a something.
Sure.
That you loved something so deeply that you owned, that was yours, and you were so abysmally bad at it, at handling it. Wouldn't at some point you be like, you know what? I love it so much. I would rather pass it on to somebody else that can do a better job than I can to see it be successful rather than just keep hanging on and driving it in the ground. Doesn't that make some sense to you?
Sure. Sure.
Not to old Georgie Porgy is if you really love the Bears, you sell them to somebody that will know how to run an organization.
And maybe that will happen. Maybe it will. What you know.
Yeah, I saw somebody tweet is like, I've never seen a fan base rooting so hard for an old lady to die so you could get some success. And I was like, that's a really morbid way to put it, but it's we're all in that kind of boat going, I'm not rooting for this lady to die, but she's about to turn 102 and she is on so much borrowed time and nothing can happen until she's gone. And then maybe something could happen.
Well, we don't know for sure, but
We don't know for sure, but we're sitting here going, well, nothing, we know nothing will happen until that point.
right. Right.
So we're just sitting here going, all right, well, we're in this boat. And I, I'm not rooting for an old lady to die,
Neither am I.
but geez Louise, I'm rooting for what's going to happen after the fact, after the inevitable.
Well, I'm rooting for the organization to step up and look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. And you want to know something that's so damning is that You can't look at this Bears regime and give the rebuild excuse anymore. Oh, rebuild's big time, blah, blah, blah. Last year, the Commanders were irrelevant. Now they're relevant. The year the Bears tanked in 22, the Texans were arguably worse off. They fucked up their tank at the end of the year. Immediately, they got good and they made the playoffs and they even won a playoff game. You're in the NFL. This is not baseball. This is not hockey. You don't spend years growing prospects and building prospect capital and growing them through a farm system on multiple levels. You don't have multiple developmental leagues. It's the NFL. Teams every year go from worst to first and first to worst. The parity in the NFL is huge. It's massive. Every year, things change. Every year, someone is in the dumps and they turn out to be something. Last year at this time, the Cardinals were one of the worst teams in football. Now, all of a sudden, you're saying, well, if you just maybe give them a little more defense, they're looking like they could be something again. It's now year 3. It's year 3, and you are staring down what is likely going to be a third losing season when teams that were in the gutter that seemed evenly worse off than you turned it around much quicker.
In the dozen years that George McCaskey has been the chairman of the Chicago Bears, dozen years, do you know what his winning percentage is?
I'm going to guess 420.
417.
Wow, I was close.
This ranks the Bears 24th in the NFL during that time. Do you know how many double-digit losing seasons in that 12 years?
So 10 losses or more.
Yes.
Let me think about this. Seven?
5.
5. What
But
was I? So let me remember correctly. I counted last year that there wasn't a double digit losing season, but 2022, 2016, 2014, was 2015 a double digit losing season? I thought it was. Weren't they 6-10 that year?
I think so.
And then 2017, weren't they also 6-10 that year?
The um uh, da, da, da.
I mean, I know 2014 they were. I know
Let's see.
2015 they were.
So 2013, 2023, they were double digit. 2022, 2021.
Oh yeah, because of the added game. They instead of being 7-9, they were 7-10. That's right.
Yeah. 2017,
Yep.
2016.
Yep.
Um, wait, hold on. AI was wrong here because the 2014, 2015, 2016, that's 1, 2, 3. 2017, that's 4. 7. It was 7.
I was right.
Yes, you were right. 7. AI was incorrect.
AI was
Uh,
probably outdated from 2022.
yes. But do you know how many playoff wins that they've got in that time period?
None. Zero.
None.
Zilch.
Ugh,
One measly division title. One measly winning season. It's either been losing seasons or a bunch of 500 ones.
so bad. Yeah, it's it is the McCaskey years. 8-8, 10-6, 8-8, 5-11, 6-10, 3-13, 5-11, 12-4, 8-8, 8-8, 6-11, 3-14, 7-10, 4-5.
Awful.
And let's see. Rankings in the division. Third, second, fourth, first, third, second, third, fourth. Like, why? Why is this acceptable? And why isn't the NFL stepping in and being like, dude, really? We need the second biggest market to have a better team.
You need the grandfather franchise of the NFL not to be a joke.
Yeah.
This
Uh,
isn't the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is the founding franchise of the NFL in Chicago. A team that can go over to London and fill a stadium. And you're going to wreck the next generation. The next generation is going to want nothing to do with you.
And we're talking this way after the Bears just played the worst team in the NFL. And
Yes.
guess what? Guess what? In a couple of days, we're going to be playing our biggest rival who have kicked the shit out of us for like 20 straight years.
They're going to run circles around us with the I don't even think they're going to need Jordan Love to throw very much. They're just going to pound it down the gut. They're just going to gash you in. And it's I look forward to not watching next week. I could be completely wrong and some miracle happens, but I'm not counting on it. I mean, the defense is having trouble stopping the run. You've had some injuries on the defense that are going to be hurtful to that. And it's really hard for me to see them stop that run game efficiently.
Honestly, I'm going to be honest with you. I hope they just run it all day and don't throw it a lot
Me
because
too.
then it takes longer to score and they'll keep running the clock out. And the game will be over faster and the score will look much less bad than the game actually is.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted the Patriots to do because honestly, early in the third quarter, I flipped. I completely flipped and said, "You know what? I hope we lose." Rub their faces in it. Because I can tell you right now, if you would have somehow eked out like a 17-14 win, I think that would have been the worst case scenario at this point.
I'm just so frustrated. And like I said, there is absolutely um you're not going to beat the Packers. Uh it's it's just you're going to lose again next week. And how many seasons has Matt Eberflus been the head coach, and how many years has he had an unacceptable losing streak?
Um, I I guess this would be the second. Like year one was a tank year, so I'll give that a pass. But
So
you'd be staring down four straight losses, assuming
yeah.
you do lose next week.
Let's see. 2022. Um, you had a 3 game losing streak, and then you had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, you had a 10 game losing streak to end the season. Yeah, you won week 1, lost week 2, won week 3, then lost weeks 4, 5, and 6, won week 7, then lost week 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, had a bye week, lost 15, 16, 17, and 18. And then 2023, you started the season 0-4. So you had a 4 game losing streak there. And then this year, you are on a 3 game losing streak. You're about to be guaranteed 4. And probably, looking at the schedule, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't know how you don't lose 9 straight.
I think they'll eke out a win somewhere. Losing nine straight for a team with this much on it, as bad as this all is. I'm not saying it's impossible, but they're gonna win a game or two, right? I mean, it's just the nature of the NFL. If that defense gets healthy again, you can beat Sam Darnold or even like the Seahawks. I don't know. I think they'll find a win or two somewhere, but that's
Oh,
about it.
all right. Well, they're not beating Green Bay next week. So that's at least four losses in a row. Um, so you're saying maybe Minnesota
Maybe.
on I don't see them winning Thanksgiving in Detroit.
I don't either.
I don't see them winning a afternoon game in San Francisco.
Most likely not.
Um, then Monday Night Football at Minnesota, maybe possibly.
Possible, not won't be favorites, but possible.
Detroit, I don't think you're beating them.
On paper, no, unless it's cold and snowy, and we do know how Jared Goff plays at Soldier Field in the cold, but
Yeah.
they're humming so well. They're just gonna run it down your gut, probably. So
Um, and then Thursday nighter against Seattle,
maybe,
maybe,
maybe.
and then at Green Bay to finish up the season. That's going to be a loss.
Unless Green Bay is something they're clinched and nothing to play for, but it's so
So
tight, I don't think that's gonna
that's
happen.
not going to happen because they're going to be, I think, barring something crazy happening, they're going to be fighting for that second place in the division. There's no way they're getting first. So you're looking at what? Maybe two more wins? Maybe.
Maybe
So that puts you at
6-11.
6-11 on the season.
Yeah,
So your brand new offensive coordinator, your hand-picked number one overall pick, your revamped wide receiver core, and you have a worse record
yeah,
with an
W-
easier
w-
schedule with an easier
yeah.
schedule.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep.
So it's everything adds up to Matt Eberflus and it's going to get fired. Why not? Why don't you just end the suffering and pull the Band-Aid off now?
Well, it's like I said, it's not going to save your season if you make a change, but I do think it can help you at least stabilize things a little bit. Maybe it's a bit of a wake up call. It sends a message and it prevents the current regime from doing any more damage.
I just like and you know Ryan Poles is not should not be immune to all of this because today's starting offensive line was Larry Borum, Tevin Jenkins, Coleman Shelton, Ryan Bates, and Matt Pryor.
Yeah, brutal.
It's a brutal offensive line. And, you know, and Nate Davis, your big time tackle signing, the one that you moved Tevin Jenkins from a spot that he was actually really good at to the other side where he's been bad is was a health there was a scratch today because somewhere along in the last 24 hours tweaked his back.
Did he sneeze like Sammy Sosa?
And you could tell Matt Eberflus was not happy because he's like, well, we sent him home because we can't have somebody with a bad back standing on 2 feet all day. Okay. I'm so Nate Davis has absolutely quit on this team.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And Ryan Poles went out and signed him to a big money contract.
Yep.
Ryan
And got
Poles,
nothing out of it.
nothing. Absolutely nothing. And we beat him up last year, his first year. Then we were like, oh, I found out there was a death in the family, and all right, we backed off a little bit, and then never got better. Then this year, it just never practiced, and it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And even when he's in there, he's not good.
Yeah, because he hasn't played, because he's barely played.
And that's all on Ryan Poles.
Yeah.
It's on Ryan Poles. Is that's what he hung his hat on, is he was going to build this offensive line, and he was, you know, you 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 haven't been able to. How many centers have you brought in, Ryan Poles?
How many has he actually brought in?
A lot. He
Like,
had.
do you have a number?
I don't have a number. I'm just. There's been a lot. Is how many centers did we go through last year?
Well, it was like the Bears with tight ends under Ryan Pace. You had a million of them, but none of them were really any good.
Or kickers at the end of the Matt Nagy era?
Oh,
Is I just. I mean, you had so many centers, and none of them have worked. And you're like, well, then you traded for Ryan Bates after you tried to sign him, and then you paid a bunch of money and gave up a fifth round draft pick for him, and he's been hurt. And now he plays, but he's not playing center. He's playing guard because you don't have any other guards. Like it is just so incredibly embarrassing. And we keep talking like there's no pocket because there's nowhere to step up because the offensive line is being pushed back from the center and collapsing around the pocket. The pocket's closing in. There's nowhere to go. It just, I just,
they don't move the pocket. When they do move the pocket, they go east. It's just like, dude.
it's just embarrassing. I don't even know what else to say about him. You know, we went into this season saying we don't feel good about the other edge rusher position. We don't feel good about the offensive line, and we've been right on both counts.
Yeah. And we didn't feel good about keeping the head coach.
We felt terrible about keeping the head coach, and uh, that we've been right. The fans have been right about everything.
We see it. The media sees it. Everybody else sees it. We say it ad nauseum every week. Every week. And yet we put up with it every week because it doesn't change. And we still watch. And it's the fact that apathy continues to grow beyond just this team, but this entire city of sports teams. What a fucking town. Here's your new sports network telling you to buy other providers because they can't provide it on the mainstream platforms. Here, go buy an antenna to watch 3 really dog shit teams. This city sucks at sports. The
I just saw
third largest market.
I just saw my new favorite tweet. The Bears should probably trade for Justin Fields.
No, God.
Oh yeah. I I can't. Um, I just can't.
There's no saving grace in this town.
No, there's not. And every time we're like, oh, hey, this team, I think they might be the one, they just break our hearts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Bears at least have Caleb Williams, who we hope is going to be our franchise quarterback, and they can't break him. They can't.
But they're going to. They are. They're
They're
actively breaking him.
they're actively breaking him, and Ryan Poles is so stupid he doesn't even realize it. Matt Eberflus is just a complete imbecile, and you can't even blame him at this point. He's just a big dumb ox. And you're like, all right, whatever. And you've got Shane Waldron laughing on the sideline while they're getting their asses kicked. And but you have and Jordan
Caleb wasn't
McCaskey,
laughing.
yeah, Caleb was not laughing. Caleb doesn't find this funny. And you know, be careful because if you keep, even if he becomes good and the Bears are still bad, when it comes time for that contract, why would he want to sign an extension?
And remember this too. Remember this too. Caleb Williams' representative, part of it being his father. His father has tweeted things. He is not going to put up with this.
Nope.
I am really curious to know if his father has some sort of communication with this team. I really don't know, but you just, he's got to be pissed. He's got to be pissed.
I mean, I would be pissed.
I mean, we talk about the puking stilts, getting on those massive 10-foot stilts and going to the McCaskey's lawn, and you're just stomping around, just puking on the lawn, just bleh, bleh, bleh. Well, I'll tell you one thing. The puke is looking like the Nile River from the fans.
Yeah, we're pissed. And you can't ignore that. Like I get you can't GM a team or run a team on the whim of the fans. You can't. But if there's a unified voice of the fan and you are doing something that is against that, you better reconsider. You better take a long, hard look and be really sure that you're right. Because so far, the fans have been unified on a handful of things, and Ryan Poles has gone against those things every time, and he has been wrong every time. Uh, so if he decides, if him and Kevin Warren and George McCaskey sit down tonight over their purple drink and they're stirring it with a purple crayon, and they don't come up with the idea of, you know what, we should probably move on from Matt Eberflus, and if that's not the answer they come up with, uh, they better reconsider because they have a lot of explaining to do.
I picture George McCaskey stirring his purple grape juice with a purple crayon. Ugh.
Oh, all right. Where do you want to move to from here?
I don't know. Pick your poison.
Uh, the Blackhawks aren't very good. I mean, they're winning now, but Lord knows if that'll stick. Uh, Smoked by Detroit, s- smoked by Dallas. Um, just can't build any momentum. Um, I don't know. I don't know what to do with this team.
Did you hear what happened at the United Center during that Detroit game?
I didn't. I was in Mexico, so I only have been reading things. So I didn't.
So there were a lot of Detroit fans in the house, and there
Hmm.
was a massive Jared Goff chant going on at the United Center.
Oof.
Look up the video
Uh, why were they chanting for Jared Goff?
because Detroit fans are lit. They took over the United Center with the chant of their quarterback who might win MVP this year and might win him a Super Bowl.
It's possible. It is possible. I,
That's where we're at.
I just, I don't think there are terrible players on this or on this Blackhawks team. It's just I mean, how many lines combinations has Bedard had already this season?
Yeah, I
Or
mean, you're struggling to build chemistry here, and it's kind of frustrating.
yeah, guys aren't playing their best. You have inconsistency. You don't take advantage of plays. Your 5-on-5 leaves a lot to be desired. Um, and a big chunk of your fans can't even watch your games without taking their giant, modern, high def, high tech TV and put some tinfoil on it while their kid is standing on the roof with metal rods trying to get a signal.
Yeah.
Like, how are you watching games? Did you get an antenna?
A lot of it I kind of just follow online. My family has an antenna TV in one of their rooms, so if I'm ever around there, I'll watch it. But that's not very often. So, um, I'll watch the games that are on national TV, whether it's TNT or ESPN.
Yeah, I hooked up an antenna um because two reasons. One, uh I wanted to watch Sven and YouTube TV doesn't have me TV for some reason.
Me TV is the most like, old traditional Svengoolie type
It
channel. That isn't
it
like WGN, CBS, or
yeah, it is a channel that just plays like Andy Griffin, uh like the Brady Bunch, Gunsmoke, uh What's Happening, who was the I don't know if it's Who Was the Boss, that might be too recent. Uh Different Strokes, um, and then they have Sven. And so it is just like all of the commercials are things for like uh a cell phone that only has like 9 buttons. They're all giant, or Life Alert, or you know, things for your arthritis pain. Like it is just old people commercials, and it probably costs the cable providers like 6 cents a month to have this channel on there, and they don't still. Um, because they're like, why? YouTube TV is not for 100-year-olds because it's internet based. So why would we have the station for 100-year-olds? So I had to go buy an antenna for that and the Blackhawks and the Bulls. And so now, like, I have to explain to my family how to work this. And I had to Google how to hook up the antenna and make it work. Watch a tutorial how to do it.
isn't that insane that we're in this position in
I,
2024 to do that?
I have a high def 86-inch television, and I was like, I hooked up a $50 antenna to it to make it work. And it does come in nice, and it is nice. Um, before I didn't get, like, I had to use the YouTube TV to even see the local stations, and everything's on a delay. So like I can watch the Bears now without a delay, without any time delay, but still it's so dumb. I can't DVR anything. Like, so a lot of the games I like to watch later. I'm doing things. And so I can't. So if I'm not home at for 7 o'clock game, I just missed it. I Game is over.
Yeah.
Uh, ah, um, let's see what else we got. We got the Bulls. Um, I mean,
They score a lot and they give up a lot.
yeah, I mean, there's nothing. I mean, they're not good, but boy, they score a lot of points. Like
They do.
and I keep saying like um, they're it's if you're gonna lose games, I think this is the way to do it, because you're like, all right, at least it's exciting. You're like, I feel like they could win any game just by sheer volume of scoring,
Yeah.
but um, this team is not good.
Well, and I mean, that's the thing. Like, sure, they could be entertaining, and you've seen them erase two 20-point deficits and an 18-point deficit. You've also seen them give up 45 points in a quarter. And it's like at the end of the day, you might look decent in the standings because the East is just so bad. It's so insanely terrible. Boston can literally just throw their jerseys onto the court and they'll run away with the number one seed in that conference. But I mean, what's the end game?
I don't know. Kobe White looks good.
He does. I like
He looks.
Kobe White.
I like Kobe White. It's fun watching him. Um, but the Bulls, like again, can't rebound. Can't rebound. Can't play defense. Um, it is just the same old story that we've kept talking about. Is the Bulls can't rebound, can't play defense, and here we are, and they're like, all right, well, at least they added scoring. They could score a shit ton of points. Um, and my hope would have been that they would be a good fast break team, but I don't think they really are. And they're terrible at fast break defense. They might be I think they're worse at fast break defense than they are at a half court set defense, that's possible. So I was hoping that them just running up and down the floor, you're like, okay, that gives them a puncher's chance at winning any of these games. Um, but it just hasn't been the case. Like they're just mediocre as fuck. Um, and they, you can't keep running because they they're bad at the transition defense.
Hmm.
And you look at the standings and it's sure they're like 1/8 of the season, 1/10 of the season. They're they're not very far into the season so far, but they're the number 8 seed.
Yay.
Right where, we expected them to be.
Pretty much. Play for that play-in tournament again.
Man, the 76ers just are brutal.
Oh, the Joel Embiid stuff is what an absolute shit show that is.
They
That's
went they went from, potential NBA finals team to 1-7, and they are just like they're a joke, 1-7.
and isn't Milwaukee 2-7, 2-8, something like that?
They are 2-8. They are bad too. And there's Giannis trade talks.
Yeah, they're already.
My God, that would be a coup for the Bulls to go and get him. I don't know what you have to trade for, but
Yeah, I know. It's funny because I feel like the Bucks pretty much had a dynasty in their hands, and they kind of just let it slip away.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. You want to hear something wild?
Hmm.
The Bulls are one game out of being the third seed in the East.
Oh, I believe it. I mean, again, you look at the standings.
It is the Cavaliers are 11-0,
Who the
which
Bulls play next, I believe.
I believe you're right. They are playing them tomorrow. Um, the Celtics are 9-2, and it's funny. I was uh in Mexico. I saw two of their games. They were on it at places. Um, so I saw the Celtics twice and the Cavaliers once. Um, and then after that, it is the Pacers at 5-5.
And I do feel like the Pacers will pick up the pace, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, God, I realized I watched a lot of basketball in Mexico. I watched the Warriors play. I watched uh, the Memphis play. What else did I watch? There was a lot of basketball on. Anywhere I went, it was on TV. It was soccer and basketball.
It's pretty cool. Got to see some sports.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was on pretty much anywhere we went. Um, and uh, you know, but like I wasn't actively sitting there like watching, but it was on everywhere. Um, let's see. Baseball, we got one big baseball news. Um, a a fan favorite Chicago Cub is no longer a Chicago Cub.
Yeah, Kyle Hendricks is going to the Los Angeles Angels, and I think it was pretty obvious for a while that they were going to be moving on, but you know, he got the perfect exit this year when he had that 7 1/3 inning shutout against the Reds in his final start, and he left to sweet emotion and the starting, the standing ovation. That was really, really great. And you know what? I wish him all the best. He'll always be a Cub in our hearts. I think it was the perfect time to move on.
Yeah, I do too. I was a little shocked how quickly he signed another contract. Um, I mean, this is an early contract. Not saying that he shouldn't have, but it just, to see him sign that quickly was, um, pretty wild. Uh, and as expected, the Cubs have all but announced um, that they're not going after Juan Soto, which is really disappointing.
I've resigned to the fact that they weren't even going to touch that.
I mean, all we need is Tom Ricketts in a press conference. We're not going to be going after Juan Soto.
We didn't sell enough pumpkins at Gallagher Way.
uh,
He's gonna have a chart, and it's just gonna be like pumpkin quota, and they're gonna have a line that's orange and has like the jack-o'-lantern face on it, and then it's gonna be like a blanked line where we needed to be. It's like, see, we didn't sell enough pumpkins.
uh,
But don't worry, you get to pay for $15 beers in the bleachers.
yeah, yeah. And we're not going to be going after Juan Soto. We could have a team of 9 Lance Johnsons. We could have a team of 9 Doug Glanvilles.
Pretty much. I love the Lance Johnson reference.
Uh, did I ever tell you the story? One time I was at the Chicago Ridge Mall and outside of Kohl's, I was like, is that a photograph? I picked it up off the ground and there was an autographed photo of Lance Johnson just on the ground outside of Kohl's.
That's funny.
I still have it somewhere. I was like, why did somebody have a Lance Johnson autographed photo? And it was like maybe like a 5x7. So it wasn't even like a big size, but it wasn't small. It was like 5x7 picture, like black and white photo autographed. And I was like, why did somebody have this? And why did they just throw it on the ground? Like, like he's a player that I felt like nobody in Chicago would have hated because he played for both the Cubs and the Sox. So you're like, okay, there you go. But and it was him in the White Sox uniform. And I grew up on the South Side, so uh, I felt like that was one that uh, people would have kept. But nope, nope, thrown on the ground.
He was a solid dude too.
Yeah.
Like solid player.
Um, but yeah, the one thing is it sounds like the Cubs are going to be all in on Roki Sasaki, the star Japanese pitcher.
Oh, please. Boy, if you got him and Shota Imanaga in your rotation and you got Justin Steele, I mean, because like let's say you got him or Max Fried, okay? So you add a legitimate pitcher in your starting rotation no matter what. So you would have Steele, one of the two you just mentioned, Imanaga three. I think the big question is where you put it four, because I think you could kind of treat Tyone as your five. If you figure out that four spot, is it Jordan Wicks? Is it Ben Brown if he's healthy again? Is it eventually Kate Horton? I don't know. But adding another legitimate starter would go a long way.
Yeah, I just I still worry about the offense.
So do I.
Like, all right, say you got Roki Sasaki, which shouldn't be a giant contract because he has to come in the league kind of like Otani did, right? Where it's like a minor league contract and then you bring him up.
I don't know exactly what his projected signing is going to be, but um, it's more realistic than Corbin Burns, obviously. I like because as good as Corbin Burns has been, I think he's going to get really paid, and those strikeout numbers are dipping, and that FIP is going up. So I'm okay with the Cubs not touching that one.
Let's see. What is uh 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 so Sasaki is 23. He can only sign a minor league contract, so it won't be a mega deal like Yamamoto did. Um uh ba, ba, ba. So Yamamoto signed a $325 million contract. What is um so when Otani was 23, he signed with the Angels for $2.3 million. Um,
I mean, it's
so
really a matter of I'm scared that the freaking Dodgers are
oh,
just
here we
gonna.
go. So Sasaki will be subject to international signing bonus pool money and should get a deal of less than $10 million.
Get it
So
done.
if the Cubs sign him, that does not eat into their much, gives them a solid a rotation piece. They should still be able to sign like a Pete Alonso. You did have um you uh um sorry you did have Bellinger opt in, so you've got that contract in. But I think Pete Alonso is a realistic one. I mean, it'd be nice to have Juan Soto, but he's probably going to stay in New York, either with the Yankees or the Mets. But you want to hear something ridiculous? I've
Sure.
I've read from multiple sources that the Dodgers are interested in Juan Soto.
Oh yeah, I know. Me too.
How on earth does that happen?
Dodgers don't care. They'll spend all the
You
money they want.
you you have Shohei Otani, you have Mookie Betts, you have Freddie Freeman, and you would get Juan Soto too? That's bullshit.
I mean, my bet is that he stays in New York, but you don't know.
I mean, he probably goes, I'm guessing he goes to the Mets for an ungodly amount of money, and then the Mets let Pete Alonso go because that more than makes up for whatever offense Pete Alonso gives you. And that's not a knock on Pete Alonso. It's just Juan Soto is, future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I mean, he's 26 and he's already on a Hall of Fame trajectory.
Yeah. Um, Pete Alonso is, you know, an, a guy that could make an all-star game, has made all-stars.
I mean, he gives you 30 plus home run power, which you haven't had in years.
Yeah. So it's not a slight. It's just just a significant upgrade if you're the Mets. Um, so I think adding Sasaki and Pete Alonso makes you significantly better if you're the Cubs.
Yes. By the way, the Wild tied it late. The Blackhawks and Wild are going to overtime.
You gotta be shitting me. I told you. I was like, I don't, it's not, the score's not gonna stay the same.
Well, shots on goal in the third period were 19-4 Minnesota.
Ugh. It's just frustrating. Just frustrating.
I feel like we haven't beaten the Wild in ages. Like
Uh,
it's been a long. I can't remember the last time we've beaten them. It feels like it's been a long time.
I'm just tired.
So am I. I am very tired too.
I do want to say this, not to go back too far, but the Saints were embarrassing for the last several weeks, and they fired their head coach, kept their offensive coordinator the same, and beat their division rival, who was actually playing good football, a couple days later.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. Um, you know, heads roll. Heads roll.
Like bowling balls.
Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think I've said my piece.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends. How we grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, or ShyFanPat2 for Alex on Twitter /X, or AlexanderJPatCreative.com for all the cool stuff that Alex does. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. Until next time. Bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears! Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.